This is the Samsung Galaxy Flip 5. In today's real day in life review, we're going to be testing out the new cover display, the camera, and tracking the battery life throughout the day. Right now, we're in front of one of my favorite coffee shops of all time. I've actually been here in a previous video. It is currently 12:34 p.m. and the phone is at 75%. This year, one of the biggest updates to this phone is to the design. It now has a big cover display on the front, and I feel like this is a change that actually really matters and was important for Samsung to make. In the past, Samsung's cover screen was really a downside of it because it kind of was not very usable. You really had to unfold the phone to do anything of meaning. This year, it's a much bigger display, but it's widget-based, which leads to two different things. A, it means that the apps aren't fully functional, like they're kind of just versions of the main app, like a widget on a home screen. And B, a lot of apps aren't yet optimized for this. So the main Samsung apps are like the calendar app here, and the weather app is also pretty nice. I love that you could just quickly see the information, but there isn't a lot of developer support yet, and it's also just completely widget. So it's a version of the app without being the whole thing. I feel like the display is big enough where you could run some full versions of applications if Samsung decided to go that route, but they didn't. And also, when you take a photo on the cover display, it looks different than when you actually open up the phone and take a photo, even if you're using the same rear camera. So there's some type of image processing going on when Samsung thinks it's a selfie versus a rear picture. It's 1:36 p.m. and the phone is at 63%. Last year when I reviewed the Flip 4, I talked about the inner display as being a little bit narrow, which leads to a 22:9 aspect ratio, which means that like when you're watching YouTube videos, if you wanted to fill the screen, you really have to punch in. And it also means that one-handability is a little bit harder on this phone than in comparison to most phones that have an 18:9 aspect ratio. If I had a choice, I would prefer that they made the Flip 5 a little bit wider and a little bit less narrow. It is pretty nice when you put it in your pocket and fold it. It's very pocketable. That's obviously the main selling point of it, and it's really amazing when you're traveling, for example, just to be able to throw this in your pocket and be on the go. I'm freaking out over this ice cream. I think this is the best flavor I've ever had. A little impromptu feature of the fact that it's a foldable means you can kind of fold the device in half and then use it almost as a camcorder for video. So it puts your viewfinder on the left side, and then on the right side you have all of your controls to adjust like how zoomed in or out you are and to start and stop the recording. And you can see very clearly in your field of view what the shot looks like versus holding something like this and then using two hands. Off the subway and headed to Central Park. Looks like the ultra-wide camera right now is struggling a little bit with finding the correct exposure. Things look a little bit blown out to me. So the Flip 5's camera setup is worse than the other Samsung flagship, both the S23 and the S23 Ultra. So that's definitely something you lose out on when you get a flip phone. Like you get this cool form factor, but you get a worse camera. Something that personally actually matters a lot to me because I take a lot of photos and videos. So I'll show you guys where you really see the difference. At 1x, it looks really good. New York City looks amazing on camera. One of the things that I love the most about New York City is how every neighborhood has such a distinct feature to it. Like this looks entirely different than the West Village looked. But you can see when we switch to the 0.5, it looks a little bit worse quality to me than the Samsung S23 because the S23 has a little bit of a higher resolution. And where you really notice a big difference is when you start zooming. So this maxes out at a 10 times zoom and it looks very grainy at a 10 times zoom. Here I would say that the zoom quality looks good up to about 3 or 4 times zoom. It's 2:08 p.m. The phone is at 58%. The last time we were in Central Park in one of these videos, I was actually doing a day in the life with the S23. And one of the things that I mentioned about that phone is the fact that it has a very high megapixel sensor, which allows images to be printed and really keep a high level of sharpness and detail. Beyond that, megapixels honestly don't mean that much for smartphone cameras. The camera quality is much more reliant on the sensor quality and the image processing than just like the sheer number of megapixels. In fact, sometimes more megapixels can actually lead to unexpected issues like focus fringing. But the fact that the Fold 5 doesn't have those extra megapixels means that even for like really zooming in, you notice a pretty substantial difference. There's also a price difference that's worth considering. And I think the fact that the camera on this phone is worse than the other Samsung flagships speaks to Samsung's priority with this device. The main thing that they wanted to do was obviously give this unique form factor, and then everything else kind of comes secondary. So if we were to kind of list which features are the best to the worst, I feel like they really prioritized obviously unique form factor. And then I think the display was the second thing prioritized. Even in direct sunlight, both displays are really bright, they're fast, they're colorful, they're beautiful displays. The hinge crease is in the center of the phone to the point where you're constantly scrolling over it. On the Fold 5, the placement means that my finger isn't going over as much. It is something that you definitely get used to, but it's worth noting. And the next area that they prioritized would be performance, like fast chipset, great software, This phone feels smooth. Battery life will keep checking throughout the day. It seems like it was decently prioritized. It's a similar battery to the S23. There's a 200 milliamp hour difference, but I feel like you don't actually notice that in practice and how well the phone performs. And then camera, I think they just had to give it passable quality because that's kind of where we're at with foldable phones. I'm gonna go sit in a rock now to give this big moment of the video. What do we think, like here because of the shade? In all the ways that the foldable form factor was previously valuable, it is still valuable, but it's not like Samsung reinvented the wheel here to make it increasingly more value than it was in the past. This is definitely an iterative update. And so then the question becomes, do you want a foldable phone? Like, do you want this form factor? Because if you do, I think that Samsung's main unfair advantage is A, they've been at this a while, so they've made a lot of the elements, like the core elements, great with a foldable, like the hinge technology. And B, because they've been at it for a while, they have great customer support, which I think is something that most people don't consider when they buy a foldable product, but these are more likely to break and have issues with the internal display, if dust gets under it, if you accidentally scratch the screen. It's an expensive device that could have problems, and Samsung has proven with their repair program that they really care about that. Maybe because of their faux pas in the past. Either way, it's great to see them put the consumer experience first, and I think that newer comers to this form factor can't really compete on that level yet. To give a bonus real-world test, I'm gonna actually show the difference between the Flip 5 and the S23's video quality while I talk about Pulseway, and then we'll just end off this video with the final battery life check-in. So Pulseway is like your ultimate tech-savvy companion that allows you to have remote access and control over your entire IT infrastructure when you're on the go. Which for me personally has been an amazing feature because I've been traveling so much recently. Like 2 days ago, I was in South Korea. And so from servers to workstations, networks to applications, Pulseway allows you to monitor it all from a single dashboard. Pulseway also has real-time alerts that go directly to your smartphone or tablet, and a beautifully designed mobile application to see it all. If you notice an issue on one of your IT servers, you'll be able to swoop in, troubleshoot, and save the day, all from the palm of your hand wherever you are. But it also does so much more than that. So it's not just the ability to kind of see your IT data, but it also allows you to deploy software updates, security updates, and patches across your entire IT network, remote into any system on the go, and also generate a powerful report from that to kind of show off what you've done. So if you want to be able to revolutionize the way that you use your IT system and have remote access on the go, become an IT hero, you can check out Pulseway, the link in the description below. Thank you to them for supporting me and this channel. Thank you to you guys. In terms of video quality here, I feel like the camera quality looks significantly better on the S23, but let me know what you think in the comments below, and let's do the final battery life check-in. It is 9:26, I'm currentally packing, and the phone is ending the day at 51%. The second half of the day was pretty light usage in comparison to the first half because I've been pretty much packing the entire rest of the day and cleaning up a bit.